Okay, so you've got Talespire and you would love to contribute to the custom content. However, you've got no 3D experience. You don't know how to use Blender. You don't know how to create 3D meshes. Well, then this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create assets that are good enough. I mean, they're not going to be as great as an asset that is made by a 3D artist. They're not going to be as detailed. They're not going to be as well textured. But for the most part, they'll be good enough to use. But the best part is you're going to be able to do this with almost no experience whatsoever. I'm going to walk you through this, and anybody should be able to follow. Okay, so let's get started. So what we're going to do is first we're going to go to a website called meshy.ai. That's meshy.ai. What this software is it's a software free. When you sign up for free, you'll get 200 credits that you can use towards creating content, and after that, you can buy more credits. I'm not going to tell you to try to circumvent that, but I'm just going to mention here every time you sign up, you get 200 credits. Let us go on. So, what this software does is it will take either text prompts or image prompts and create 3D objects out of them. And then you can bring those 3D objects into Talespire. Okay, so I'm going to show you both methods here. I have found that most of the time I get more mileage out of the image to 3D. So I sometimes generate my 2D image somewhere else, and then I use the image to 3D here to create the 3D object. But your mileage will vary depending on what you're trying to create. So I'm going to start off with the 3D text to 3D. So that's going to take you to a quick tour that we can skip somewhere. Anyways, here's the prompt. So I'm going to go with something. Let's say we're not making a character. We're going to make a prop, and I'm going to say like a fruit stand. So let's say outdoor fruit stand with a wooden counter, wooden frame, and a cloth roof and sides, something like that. Over here you can just keep the AI model as is. Here you have some choices for the art style. I usually go with realistic, but that's your choice. Your poly count, don't go to 100K because you're not gonna. Talespire is not gonna allow you to use that high a count. So keep it on 40K or less. And then you got your options for type topology. I usually go triangle, but again, it really doesn't matter. And then we can generate our asset. So you can see that generating costs 15 credits. So with 200, you're going to get, roughly, let's say 10 uses out of it, because it's going to take you some credits also to texture it. And again, depending on how many people are generating stuff at the same time, your generation may take longer because, well, we are using the free. I believe if you take one of the upgraded plans, then you'll get like priority creation, but the Meshy one doesn't seem to take that long. Okay, so once it finishes generating, you're going to get 4 white variations on what you have asked it for. So before it goes and texturing it, it's just going to give you 4 options. You're going to select the ones that you want to texture because, again, texturing costs credits. So this way you don't have to texture all 4 of them and then choose one of them. You can choose the one you want and then texture only that one. Looks like it's a little stuck at 99. Okay, so here we have some options. We can click on these options to get a bigger view of them, and you can rotate them around. That's not bad. Let's see if we get something better. Yeah, maybe this one. What else do we got? Yeah, I'm probably liking this one. Or maybe this one. Okay, let's go with this one. So once you've decided the one that you want, you can hit the texture, and again, it costs some credits to texture it. But after that, we're going to have a textured asset that is pretty well ready to be inserted through Tailweaver into Talespire. And that's the beauty of it. You know, again, you can see that, you know, the detail isn't the highest. It does seem to rely a fair amount on the texture to kind of put in the details, which usually means that that you can get away with a lower topology, meaning that it will take less CPU in Talespire, but it also means that, yes, you're not going to get super high detailed minis or assets, but most of the time it's, you know, as I said, good enough to use, especially considering that you've spent, what, a few minutes to sign up for an account and write the prompt. So again, over here we can see the progress of our generation. That will somewhat depend on how many other users are using it at the same time. So we need to wait. You can see also up here you have a regenerate. So if you don't like these 4 options, you can regenerate. I do believe that is going to take away your credits again, but you'll get 4 new variations of that that asset. Okay, and there we go. So we can click here, and now we've got our textured version. So you can see that the textures aren't too bad. There's a few places where they're kind of bleeding a little bit, something like that right here. It looks a little bit odd, but you know, overall they're not bad. You can definitely tell what this is supposed to be, and it doesn't look too bad, especially when you throw it in the game, and you know, it's not going to be a huge, you're not going to be going up very, very close to see it, at least not usually, so it should be good enough. Okay, so that was the prompt from a 3D, sorry, that was a generation of a asset from a text prompt. I'm going to download this so that we can use that later for pulling into Talespire. But right now I am going to go over to the image to 3D. And this works in a similar manner, but instead of you giving it a prompt, you can give it a picture, and it will create something based on that picture. So I am going to go over here, and I am going to pick a Tron light cycle here. I'm going to wait for it to load. Okay, so I've got a Tron light cycle here. You can see by default it's filled in a name of what it thinks that is. I'm just going to correct that to say Tron light cycle. Okay, and then the rest of the stuff here is very similar. We've got our poly count, which we're going to keep at 30K. We've got our model, and either quad or triangle, and we can generate that exactly the same way. Now, in the instructions, they show you that if you've got like a character, the best angle to generate the picture is from a front view. I have done, well, I've used this a lot for objects and not necessarily minis. And in that case, I usually generate from a isometric view like this, like a slightly side view, because that gets both kind of the front and the side for the meshy algorithm to see what it should look like. So here it's generating. It looks like it's partially already given us a preview, but it's still at 45%. So we're going to have to wait for that to finish. Looks like it's a little stuck at 45%. Either thinking hard about it or lots of users on at the moment. And you'll always get your wonderful prompt to go pro and speed that up. If you're really interested, you can go and look at the various plans, and they will tell you what the benefits of each tier are. So for example, beyond the free tier, they've got animation capabilities, but the animation is really just kind of rigging your mini if it's a person, or I think it also supports animals, but it doesn't really, you can't really prompt for an animation and have it generate it, so it's not all that impressive in my mind. Okay, so there's our Tron cycle. Looks like a little bit, the tire here has been, a little bit smushed. Some of this texturing here isn't the greatest. But again, if you're not looking too close at this, is it the best asset? No. Is it probably good enough for your Talespire game? Well, that all depends on you. Depends how picky you are. But, again, we generated this in a few minutes. If you were to try to generate this by hand, I'm sure it would take you a lot more than a few minutes. Okay, so that is using the image to 3D. I will download this also. Okay, and then just before we go on, there is some bonus content here that I can show you. There is a AI texturing option here. And what that allows you to do is if you have an asset and would like to try to retexture it to make the texture a little bit different, you can try using this. So we're going to need to upload a mini here. So I'm going to use our fruit stand, but when we downloaded it, it was a zip, so I'm going to have to extract it first. So I'll be right back. Okay, so to retexture something, we are going to create a new project here. We're going to go fruit stand, and then we're going to select the object that we want to retexture. So in this case, I'm using our earlier fruit stand. Okay, I'm going to create a project. Now it's going to ask for a name again, so I'm going to repeat fruit stand. And then here's the prompt for the texture. So I'm going to change our to our fruit stand. So I'm going to say fruit stand with a metallic counter and metallic frame with a red and white striped cloth for the roof. Well, let's see how well it can do that. So basically we've turned the wooden fruit stand into a metallic one with a red and white striped roof. Okay, then we have similar to before. You can add a negative prompt here. So if there are certain things you don't want used in there, you could put that here. I'm not going to use a negative prompt in this particular case. And then we have a style again. So I usually go with realistic, but there are different styles to choose from. You can here use the original UV or not. I haven't seen it make all that much of a difference. But I guess if your UV kind of aligns to a lot of your mesh, which I mean, typically that will be the case. You might want to keep that on because that may help it determine the boundaries for the textures. Then you can choose to generate PBR maps if you want or not. If you don't know what that is, then keep it off because you're not going to use it in Tailweaver. Then we have our resolution for the textures. I think that 2K at most, again, this asset is going to be in Talespire. It's not going to be taking up the whole screen. So I think applying a 4K texture to it is overkill. But, if you desperately want super high resolution, go ahead. And then we're just going to generate. And of course, again, it's going to take away some of our credits for retexturing. So let's see how that goes. So this is very useful if you, for example, downloaded an asset from the internet, but the coloring isn't what you'd like. You can kind of use this to quickly retexture it without, again, having to know anything about Blender or going in and modifying textures or anything like that. This will do it for you. And of course, again, the results here will be limited by the algorithm and, of course, how well you have prompted the retexturing prompt. So usually what I'll do is I'll start off with no negative prompt, but then if I see some things in the texture that I don't like, then I'm going to try to put some negative prompts in. So didn't do the greatest job here. This obviously looks like it is supposed to be metallic, but the red was applied to the surface of the counter, and our roof is definitely not red and white. So I might now try some changes here in the prompt to get kind of the texture that I want. I'm not going to right now spend time with this because really this was just kind of a bonus. The two important ones that we wanted to talk about was the text to 3D and the image to 3D, which we've already done. So the next step now is going to Tailweaver and basically importing our asset into Talespire. Now for that, yes, you're going to need a little bit of work. If you haven't set up Unity and the Tailweaver project, you need to do that. There is a tutorial for that provided by Bouncy Rock, so go ahead and use that. I'm not going to repeat that here because it would just be repeating information that's already available, and if that process changes, the video would be outdated. So again, if you don't have a Tailweaver project set up, just follow those steps. The guide is very, very simple. It does it step by step, so that shouldn't be a problem. The guide actually goes through the whole process of making the asset, but it also includes the installation at the beginning. I'm going to go through the process of making that asset, so the only part that you need to take from that guide is the installation of the Tailweaver project. Okay, so see you in Unity. Okay, so if you've loaded the Tailweaver Lite project, it should look something like this. The panels might be a little bit arranged slightly differently. That's okay, as long as you've got these three panels. That's the important ones. You want the scene, you want the creature mods, and then you want access to your project architecture. Now, when I import my asset, I like to make a folder for it. With the Tailweaver Lite, usually, unless you've got the additional files, usually you'll just have two files, one being the mesh file and one being the texture file, the albedo texture file. So really you could just have them out in the assets folder or something like that, but I like to organize them. So I've just made a fruit stand folder that I'm going to put my assets into. Okay, so now I'm going to right click, import assets, and I'm going to go to the folder where my asset is, and I'm going to select, you want both files. In the zip file that we got from Meshi, there should be two files in there. One will be an FBX. When we downloaded it, we selected FBX, so we get an FBX file here, and then we get the PNG file, which is our albedo texture. If you're not familiar, just a quick note, the albedo texture is basically the colors of your object. Your normal texture kind of gives it more depth and indication as to which way things on the object are facing. And then there is the metallic AO roughness texture, which indicates which aspects of the asset are metallic and which one or not, and which ones are rough or not. But really, the important one is the albedo, because that's the colors. The rest of them, yeah, if you want to make a nice asset where you have a sword that's got a nice metallic blade, but a non-metallic handle, yeah, you can add those files, but it's not necessary. We're going with simple and basic, so we are just going to import the two files that we got in our zip file from Meshi. Okay, so now over by the creature mod, we got to give this a name, so I'm going to go with fruit stand. Then here we are going to click on mesh, and in the selection of meshes, you're going to find the one that is applicable. It may have a weird name like mesh_0. I think that's the fruit stand. We'll find out in a moment, so I'm going to select that. Yeah, that looks like the fruit stand. Obviously, the orientation here is incorrect, so you can either go down here. Where is it? And focus creature on rotation, and that will allow you to rotate the asset. The other way you can do that is W is for moving, E is for rotating, and R is for resizing. So you can use those keys. Or you can also just type in the numbers over here in the inspector. So whatever way you choose, go ahead. Now, I like to do is I like to click on this and then click on the center, so I get a dead on front side view. So that way I can see. Okay, so here that looks pretty good. We're gonna go down. Actually, hold on. This is. I want to make sure. I'm gonna go to the front. So this is my front. I don't really want that. I want something like that to be the front. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm just going to fix it right there to make sure that it's exactly. Okay, so now once we've done our translation, rotation, and scaling. We're going to go down over here. We can click on the show creature for scale. And it looks to me like we can scale this up a little bit. So we can go back to the scaling, or again, you can hit R. And I'm going to scale that up a bit. And then I need to move it up a bit. Okay, so now it's probably looking about right. It looks like the roof is somewhere above the head of the barbarian, so probably about right. Again, we're setting this up for a 1x1 tile because if we extend this too much, then Tailweavers are likely to be complaining about it. So we could actually even make it smaller than the Barbarian, like I had it before, because most likely when you bring it into Talespire, you're probably gonna, use the GM tool to size it up to a 2x2. So I'm gonna go with that actually. I'm going to size this back down a little bit so that it looks like here it fits the one tile. So something like this. Okay, so right now we can see that it is fitting into one tile. So obviously it's way too small for the Barbarian, but again, if we bring this into Talespire, we're likely going to increase that to a 2x2 or maybe even bigger asset, in which case it's going to then have the proper height. Okay, this is one of the limitations of a Tailweaver, as far as I know, is that if we try to make this a 2x2 sized dwelling, it's probably going to yell at us that it's exceeding the limits of the space, and it's not going to be happy about it. So it's better to size everything for a 1x1 tile, and then in the game increase it to whatever size you want using the GM tool, sizing tool. All right, so we've got that. Now we need to set this. Of course, we're making an object here, but Tailweaver is designed for minis, so it's going to ask us for things like the head, the spell, the hit, and the torch locations. Some of those aren't really going to be applicable for this, but we need to set them. So I'm going to go here with head target. Okay, we'll make head be the roof. Okay, then spell target, that's going to be the fruit on the table. Hit target is going to be the base. And then torch usually is a little bit out in front of the mini, so I will put the torch somewhere out here. Okay, so now we've got that. We're going to hit the camera here. And I usually like to go into the top view for doing the camera view. I'm going to back this off, and I like to do a little bit of a side view. So let's try that, just to give that a little bit of depth to it. And then I'm going to flip back and take it up a little bit. Yeah, that looks reasonable. We're going to do the same thing over here. So right now we've got that. I'm going to go like that. I'm going to go in a little bit. Why not? Okay, so with that done, we have essentially now created that asset ready for Talespire. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit save. We're going to save that. So that has saved a TS mod file. If you're not familiar with it, TS mod file is basically a file that you can throw into your local packs content folder, and then this asset will show up under the under your normal core creatures menu under a group called local. Now, if you want to then share this, you're going to want to hit the export for mod.io. That doesn't prompt you anywhere where to save it, because it uses the same folder as the save does, and it creates a zip file instead. And that's a zip file that you can then upload to mod.io. It will also create a PNG file, which is this view right here that you can use in mod.io for the logo. And once you upload it to mod.io, it will be then available for everybody else. I highly recommend that before you upload anything to mod.io, use the TS mod version in your local content folder to make sure that the asset works properly, so that you don't upload something that doesn't work and find out afterwards. Okay, so how do we now get to our local content packs folder? Okay, we're going to just open up File Explorer. We are going to type ampersand app data, percentage app data percentage, and press enter. That's going to take you into your app data roaming folder. We're going to go one out and then go to local O, Balance Rock Entertainment, Talespire, and you will see your local content pack folder. So whatever TS mod file you throw in here, it will show up in Talespire in the creature menu under a group called local. The one nice thing is that this folder is monitored even during runtime. So if you are in the middle of a game, you don't want to stop, no problem. If you throw a new asset into this folder, Talespire will pick it up at runtime and make it available. So let's put our So here we can see that it created the fruit stand zip file. That's for mod.io. There's the PNG for mod.io, and then here is our our TS mod file that we can use right away. So I'm going to take that, copy it into my local content packs folder, and now let's run Talespire. So I'm going to start modded. I didn't need to start modded because Tailweaver is a core function, so I could even be using vanilla, but I tend to use modded because I've got lots of cool mods. And not just because I wrote them. Okay, so a moment for Talespire to start up. Let's create a new one. A whole world dedicated to fruit stand. Okay, so here we are in Talespire. If I open up the library, go to creatures, and scroll all the way down to the bottom to the others local section, you can see the various assets that I happen to have in my local local content packs folder. And if I grab a fruit stand, there it is. That's our fruit stand. Again, this compared to a regular mini, if I take a human, okay, obviously that is a tiny little fruit stand. Maybe a fruit stand for your pet, but not a fruit stand for people. But you would most likely do something like this. And now we have a fruit stand that is of a more appropriate size. And if you happen to have the hide base plugin, you can also hide the base so that your fruit stand is not with this huge base. Now, if you do, because Tailweaver doesn't really allow you to put assets below the base, you're going to have a little bit of a floating fruit stand, but you know, either way, yeah. So that shows you that with very little, that's a pretty boring texture. I think the fruit there had lots of like color, but because it's all in the dark, it's a very basic plain texture. But anyways, that's not the point here. The point is that with very little experience, just following these steps without ever going into any kind of a mesh editing software like Blender, we were able to bring a totally new asset into Talespire with pretty well no 3D knowledge whatsoever. So yeah, if you are not a great modeler but would like to contribute, go ahead, use this this method and bring great new content to Talespire. Just lastly, I'd like to say, I found Meshy to be useful. Again, it makes stuff that's good enough. You know, if you paid somebody to make a fruit stand, they could probably do a much better job, but you're also paying them, whereas this is for free. I'm not affiliated with Meshy at all. I just found it useful, so I thought I'd share that with you. There are other software like it. There is one called Rodin, I think it is. And that one is also pretty good. It seems to have a little bit more options like hard edges and soft edges and so on to kind of guide the output. So I've seen that one. It also has the advantage that you can kind of use both a image and a prompt to kind of guide the creation process, but it also means that if you do that, it's a lot less strict on making it look like the image. It kind of uses the image for inspiration, but you know, modifies the mesh as outlined by your prompt. But it's a very similar concept. Same kind of things. You can do text to image or text to 3D or image to 3D, and I think it's got a very similar credits type subscription where you get some free credits to begin with, but then you need to buy more to get additional credits. So yeah, so Meshy is definitely not the only one. There are other programs out there. So if Meshy is not to your liking, have a look, and I'm sure you'll be able to find others. And that's about it.